In this video, we are going to learn about constructor and destructor in derived classes. In the previous video, we learned about the types of inheritance. We learned all the 5 types: single, multiple, multi-level, hierarchical, and hybrid. And we also learned how to make a class as virtual. Today, it's going to be quite interesting since we are going to learn about constructor and destructor. We already learned this constructor and destructor in the first unit. Let's see how to apply these two concepts in derived classes. As long as no base class constructor takes any argument, the derived class need not have a constructor function. It's mandatory if there is a constructor in your base class. When you're deriving a derived class, you have to inherit some properties from a base class. So obviously you should have a constructor in your derived class. And understand, the values that you're going to pass into the base classes constructor will be defined using derived classes constructor. Look at the second point. However, if any base class contains a constructor with one or more arguments, then it is mandatory for a derived class to have a constructor and pass the arguments to the base class constructor. That means a base class constructor values cannot be defined automatically or from the main function. You can't do that. A base classes constructor value will be given only by a derived classes constructor. That's the reason we have a topic called constructor in derived classes. Third point, a base class constructor is executed first and then the derived class constructor is executed. This is the order we follow when we use constructor in derived class. When we start from the main function, once you introduce an object, that object is going to call the derived class constructor. And obviously the values for base class constructor are given in the derived class. So first the base classes constructor is going to be executed first and then comes to the derived classes constructor. And we have a syntax to be followed. We see that the constructor of the derived class receives the entire list of values as its arguments and passes them on to the base constructor in the order in which they are declared in the derived classes. You can look here. This is an example or just a small syntax given here. Derived constructor, and it has some arguments like 1, 2 and so on so till d. And after that I'm having a colon. It's forgot to mention here, we are supposed to have a colon here. Along with that colon we have base 1. So I have a base 1 constructor, base 2 constructor. So likewise I can have as many number of base constructor. And any argument that you're passing in a derived classes constructor will be passed automatically to the base classes constructor. So you don't give anything separately in a base classes constructor. You don't define any new or declare any new variables. Whatever you're giving in a base classes, derived classes constructor will be automatically taken into a base classes constructor. So everything will be determined using a derived classes constructor. So let's see an example how it is being done. A very small example I have given here. You can see this is a derived classes constructor. So I'm having 5 arguments inside. So I'm having integer a1, integer a2, b1, b2, d1. And you can see here, this is how you have to inherit a base classes constructor. You have to use a colon and then you have to use a base classes constructor name along with that parameters. See, a1, a2, it's not a new variable. It is already been given inside the derived classes variable. You can't give something like d1, d2, which is not present in this derived constructor. That will pass an error. So anything that you declare here will alone be used in the base classes parameters. So a1, a2 already defined here. And likewise, we have one more class b classes constructor. It is having b1, b2. It is also defined inside the derived classes constructor. And this d1 that belongs to derived class, so I am defining this. So I am saying d equal to d1. a1, a2 belongs to first base class a, and b1, b2 belongs to second base class b. You can see here the constructor a of a1 comma a2 invokes a base constructor a, and b of b1 comma b2 invokes a base constructor b. And let's see the order of execution. I have given some samples here. You can see this is my derived class and it is inheriting from the base class A. So A is going to call first. That means the order of constructor is going to be executed. When you have a inheritance like this, one base class and one derived class, the base constructor is going to be called first, and then it goes for the derived constructor. So when you have an inheritance order like this, like a multiple inheritance, so you have two base class and one derived class. So that means it is defined as B and then C. In the same order, it should be inherited in the base classes. You can't go to C and then go to B. It will not be accepted. So you can look here. B of base construct is going to be called first, and C of base second construct is going to be called, and then it goes for the derived class constructor. You can, so how if I can give a priority, say I need this C constructor to be called first. So we already discussed about this in the previous video, the way we introduce a virtual is going to give a priority. So you can look here, I'm saying class A public B comma virtual public C. When you say virtual for any class, that's going to give on the first priority. That means instead of calling B and C, I made C as virtual, so it's calling C first, as because it is a virtual class. So that constructor is going to be called first, and then it goes for B, and finally for the derived class. Please understand this order of execution. If at all any program related to this constructor or destructor in the derived class, some example might be a little bit confusing. So you have to understand how to give the priority. So multiple inheritance, single inheritance, when you introduce virtual in a multiple inheritance, how it is going to be called, all should be known before getting into the program. The last one is destructor. It is called in reverse sequence of constructor. That is, the destructor class is called first and the destructor of the base is called next. Usually when we introduce constructor, the base class called first and then we go for the derived class, but destructor goes in a reverse order. It called the base first, destructor first, and then go for the base class. So let's see a few examples. Let's see two examples for constructor and derived class and one example for destructor. Let's see a program for constructor. Let me introduce multiple type inheritance. That means we are going to have two base class and one derived class. So I have created one base class as class alpha. What I'm going to do in two base classes, I'm going to declare one variable. I'm going to introduce two functions. One function is going to be a constructor, another function is going to be a normal function. The constructor is going to have a parameter that is going to assign a value, and the normal function is going to display the value. The same happens for the second base class also. It's going to declare a new variable, two function, one will be a constructor, another one is going to be a normal function. The same procedure like we followed for first class. And derived class again is going to have two variables, and it's going to have a constructor, and it is going to have a normal function that displays those two values. Let's see one by one how the constructor works in base class and derived class. First, let me introduce a variable, say x, and that's in private, under public, and remember constructor usually give under public access specifier. So understand the rule. I'm going to introduce constructor here. Constructor always starts with the class name. It doesn't have any return type. It always starts with the class name. So alpha is my class name. Sorry. So let me give the parameter here. Let me say integer I, and I'm going to assign I in x. So x equal to I, and let me give a message which one is going to be called first. Let me say alpha initialized. I'm using this cout to make you understand which constructor is called first, or let me hide this first and then I'll enable it for later. And let me have one normal function, and that's going to display the value. Let me say show of x, Alright, let me introduce another class. Let me call that as beta. The same I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce a new variable. Let me give a return type as float, an access specifier, and I'm going to have a constructor. So the class name is beta, and I gave the return type, parameter that I gave I, so here I gave j. Let me assign that y equal to j. Let me have a normal function void show of y variable, out y equal to, so two base classes are done. Let me introduce a derived class. It's a gamma. I'm going to inherit both the base classes, but I'm going to inherit in a quite different manner. Instead of going in order, first saying public alpha and then public beta, I say public beta first and then public alpha. Here the same thing. I'm going to have two variables. Let me say m and n, access specifier. Let me introduce constructor. It is mandatory. If a base class contains constructor, you have to introduce a constructor in the derived class. And I need to give all the variables for the base class as well as for the derived class. So let me have four variables, that is two for two base class and two for my derived class. So first is integer, next I gave float, so let it be float, and two for my derived class. Okay, so let a for the first base class and b for the second base class and c and d for this m and n. And let's don't forget the syntax. Here I have to introduce colon, and now I have to inherit base classes one by one. So let me say alpha. I need to give the parameter. So here I have set a. So let me give a, comma. So next one is beta. There also one parameter. So float type I have given as b. So let me give b. So that part is done. Now I have to define the derived classes constructor. So let me assign this c and d in this m and n. So m equal to c and n equal to d. Let me say this as gamma initialized. I think I forgot to mention this in beta. Here let me say c out beta initialized, and I'm going to hide this right now, and let me hide this too. Okay, so we are done with two base class and one derived class, and here we need one more function, isn't it? We need to display the value of m and n. So void show the variable m n c out. Let me call one by one. Let me call m and then m without double quotes. Likewise n without double quotes. Okay. Now let me jump into the main function. First thing, we have to create an object. So we know that we always create an object for the derived class. So my derived class is gamma, and let me create g as a object name. Now look here, gamma has 4 parameters. Don't worry about what it has inherited. We are not going to bother about that. I'm going to give 4 values for this 4 parameters that is given inside the derived class constructor. So let me give the value one by one. So 5 comma 10 comma it's a float value, so let me give 10.75 or something, and 20, and last one 30. So I gave 4 values. Alright, so how it is going to be assigned, that's quite curious here. This 5 is going to be assigned in the place of A, and 10.75 in the place of B, and 20 in the place of C, 30 in the place of D. Now once it jumps into this line, all the values are going to be assigned, and it jumps into the base classes constructor. Always understand, it goes to the base classes constructor, and finally it comes to the definition of the derived class. So first I'm inheriting here is a alpha base classes constructor. So in the place of A, the value 5 is going to be assigned. So alpha carries the variable 5. Next it is going to be assigned in beta constructor. That is the value 10.75 is going to be assigned for the second base class. So here 5, and here for the beta class. But here one more thing, the way I have inherited, that matters here. First I have called beta, and then I have called alpha, but the constructor has been inherited in the order alpha beta. Here beta alpha, but constructor alpha beta. So which one going to be considered? Am I going for this constructor alpha beta, or the class inherited by beta alpha? It always gives priority to the class, how the class has been inherited. It inherited beta first and then alpha. Doesn't matter in which order you have inherited in the constructor, doesn't bother about it. So first it goes to beta, that means the value beta is going to be assigned, 10.75 is going to be assigned first, and then alpha is going to be assigned, and then finally the value C and D is going to be assigned in M and N. For that purpose only I have introduced something called this gamma initialized, alpha initialized, to make you understand. So whatever that I'm saying, it might be quite not convincing to you. So you can see that in output in which order it has been called up. So let me finish the main function first. Let me call, so this is going to call all the constructor. So let me stop that. Now we need to call the all the normal function. So starting with my first base class, show underscore a of, and then second base class, show underscore I gave us x, I guess. Yeah, I gave x here, x, and yes, and here it's going to be y. The last one, g dot both m and n, so m n. Okay, all right, so let's run this program. So if I run the program, we know the output is going to be show underscore x. That means the value a is going to be assigned, so it is going to give the answer 5. And then I'm calling show underscore y. So y means the beta value, so 10.75, that is going to be assigned next. And show underscore m, and it's going to be 20 and 30. This is going to be called up. Oh, is that an error? What it says? Oh, instead of 0 I typed O. My bad. Yeah, got the output. X equal to 5 first base class, y equal to 10.75 second base class, m equal to 20, n equal to 30 my derived class. Now I told you the way it is going to be inherited, that matters. So I need to prove you that. I told you that beta is going to be called first, and then alpha values are going to be assigned. To make that clear, I'm just disabling this. So I'm saying beta initialized in first base class, I'm sorry, second one. And first I'm saying alpha initialized, second one beta initialized, and finally I'm saying gamma initialized. So what I'm saying here is first beta will be called, and then alpha, and then gamma. Let's see that. Okay, is there an error? Typing mistake. Okay, see, first beta initialized, so beta has been called first, and then alpha called, and then gamma called. That's how a derived class destructor works, and please understand how it has been inherited. Inheritance always given in the class priority. It doesn't matter in which order you're inheriting the base class. Always focus on how the class has been inherited. So let's see one more program. That will be the advanced one of this program. I'm going to take the same program, but here the way I'm inheriting this base classes constructor. So this derived class is inheriting two base classes constructor, and the values are assigned using the derived class constructor. Can I assign a normal variable? Let me say something like C of R, that is C equal to R. Can I give a normal assigning value like this while you're inheriting? So I give this R value or C value in the base class, some base class, or either in the alpha or in the beta or in the gamma, anywhere. Is it possible, instead of giving the derived class's name or base class's name, can I give a normal way of assigning values? That is initializing the values. Is it possible? That's what we are going to check in the next program. Here it is possible. We can assign a normal value the way you are inheriting the base class also. So colon, you can use a base class's name, as well as you can initialize a normal values in the way you are inheriting the base class constructor. It is possible. So let's see one more program, the same program, but let me type that first so that you can understand how the variables are assigned and the values are put forwarded. I have created a new file, constructor underscore derived 2. Since I told you I'm taking the same program, so I have taken a base class alpha. I have all these same thing. I'm giving one variable and one constructor and one normal function. And next, I'm going for the second base class. So in my second base class, I'm introducing two variables here. Let me give a same float, and I give two new variables like p comma q and public access specifier. So let me give the derived class as usual. So since two variable, I give float a comma float b. Here I'm going to use colon. We didn't introduce something like this in a base class. I'm introducing something in a base class. Understand that. I'm going to give the values of this p and q using this a and b over here in my statement itself. So I'm not defining anything inside. Usually what we do is we open the bracket and they say p equal to a and q equal to b. That's what we give, isn't it? So instead of that, I'm initializing these values in a quite different manner. I'm saying p of a comma q of b. It's possible. So I'm initializing the values in a constructor itself in a quite different manner. I'm not giving anything inside the definition part. So here I'm just giving just C out. I say beta initialized. And even you can do some calculations here. Say if I want to add anything along with this value, it's, for example, if I say the value of A is 4 and B is 8, here P is going to give the value 4 and A is going to, I'm sorry, Q is going to, so this is not A, this is Q, I'm sorry, and Q is going to give the value 8. Say I need the value to be multiplied here or added here along with the A. I can give like this. I say B plus A. So 4 and 8. So here I get the value 4. Here 4 plus 8. 12 is going to be assigned for Q. So any calculation can also be added here. Multiplication, division, anything can be added. But the only thing is you have to use only these two variables. You can't use any other variable. Using these two variables, you can do any sort of calculation. So let it be B plus A. And let me introduce a normal function. So void show underscore, since two variable, that is PQ. Let me say C out P first. And all right, we close this class. Now let's get into the derived class. So derived class is gamma, and it's going to inherit in the same order which I explained earlier. Let me say public beta, gamma, public alpha. Same I'm going to have that U and V and public access specifier. Let me have the constructor gamma. I'm going to pass three variables this time. I'll tell you how and why. First is I'm saying integer A, and then I say integer B, and then I say float C. The reason why I'm giving quite differently is you might be thinking that we have to give everything in particular order of how we are going to inherit. Don't worry about the order which I'm giving here. I'm saying integer A, so you might be thinking A is assigned for first class, that is for alpha, and second I gave PQ as float, but I have given integer here. Is that going to pass any error? No, not like that. Understand A, B, C, these three are having a different data types, and how I'm using that in the base classes constructor. Just pay attention. I'm using colon. First I say alpha. It doesn't matter, you can call beta also first. So let me say alpha. So it's going to have an integer variable. Either you use A or B. It's up to you. So I'm using A here. And likewise, I told you that a normal variable can be manipulated here. That means I'm adding plus, and I said I can use multiplication. Why can't a constructor, base classes constructor, can also be manipulated? The parameters, of course, can be. I say into 2. If I give some value A equal to 10, it's going to be multiplied as into 2 and give the value as 20. So you can do the manipulations here also. You can add or subtract to anything that you want. Can be done. This program defines that. And next it's going to call beta. So it has two float values. Fortunately we have one float variable, so obviously I have to use this C two times inside. There is no other go. C comma C comma, like how I have introduced P and Q here, we have U and V. Let me use one instead of using two. Let me give one. Let me take this U first. I'm saying U equal to A. So that can be given as U of A. So any value that I give for A is going to be assigned for the first base classes constructor, and as well as the same value is going to be assigned for the variable U. That's an advantage that can be done. So let me give the other variable. So b has to be assigned, isn't it? So let me give this b in b. So b equal to b, and let me say here gamma initialized. And one more function, we need to display u and v. So void show underscore uv. Let me call that one by one. First let me call u, and then v. All right, now let's get into the main function. Main function remains same. It's not going to give any big difference apart from the parameter that have changed. So I have to create an object for derived class and three parameters. So give three values. Let me give 2 comma 4 comma, and next one is a float value. Let me give 2.5. And next I'm going to call all the normal functions. Show underscore a. Did I give a, or let me check? X. Show underscore x. And next g dot show pq. That's right. And then g dot show underscore uv. Return 0. Now before checking the output, be very clear. The values 2 is going to be assigned for a, and 4 is going to be assigned for b, and 2.5 will be assigned for c. Look, the order it is inherited. It is inherited beta and alpha. So first it goes to the beta constructor. So that means c 2.5 and 2.5 is going to be assigned in this a and b. So a carries 2.5 and b carries 2.5. That means the variable p will be assigned as 2.5, and q is going to be assigned 2.5 plus 2.5 5. So p is going to have 2.5, q is going to have 5. And next it goes to alpha. That's how it inherited. So it goes for alpha. It says a into 2. So a is going to have the value 2, isn't it? We gave us 2, so 2 into 2 4. So alpha is going to print the value a as 4. And finally it comes to this initialization part. A is 2, so e is going to have the value 2, and b is going to be assigned as 4. b we have already given as 4. That's how the values are going to be assigned. The initialization is going to be same. How it is going to be inherited? First beta will be called, and alpha will be called, and finally gamma is going to be called. And then we are going to display all the values. Let's check that. Forgot. Type mistake. Beta initialized, alpha initialized, gamma, x equal to 4, that means 2 into 2 4, p 2.5, q 2.5 plus 2.5 5, q equal to 2, and v equal to 4. Hope you are clear about this constructor, how it has been used in inheritance. So let's see one more program for Destructor, how the Destructor is being called, and please recollect it. Destructor is a quite opposite of Constructor. It is not going to call your base class and then to the derived class. First it is going to call the derived, and then it goes to base. So let me take a very simple program to understand the Destructor in inheritance. class here, I'm going to take single inheritance, that means one base class and one derived class. A very simple one to make you understand how Destructor works. I'm not going to pass any variables here, just I'm going to print few variables, print few string here to understand how the order is being taken forwarded from the derived class to the base class or from the base class to the derived class. So let me directly go to the public access specifier. Let me have one constructor. So my class name is base. I'm giving the constructor name as base. I'm going to print saying that this is a base class constructor. I'm not doing any calculation here. And let me have one destructor here. And destructor, be very clear, the last video we already checked how to use a destructor. It also carries the same class name, base of. One difference is I have to use a tilde symbol before this class name. So if you're using tilde symbol, the program will understand that's not a constructor, that's a destructor. To make sure, I'm printing a string saying this is my base class destructor. That's it. Let me create a derived class. I say derived and it's going to inherit from base. So public base. The same thing I'm going to mention here. I say derived. This is my constructor. I'm saying cout derived class constructor. And let me have one destructor, so I have to use a tilde symbol, derived. Say cout derived class destructor. Alright, now in the main function it's very simple since we don't have any other function to call, and I'm going to use an object for derived class D. That's it. Return 0. Now just tell me how this program is going to work. First, obviously it goes to the derived class and it checks whether it has inherited anything from the base class. Of course, we have a class called base, so it directly jumps to the base and it looks into the definition part. It has a constructor and it has a destructor. So first it gives a priority to the constructor. That means your first output is going to be base class constructor. And next, what it is going to be? Is that going to call the destructor immediately once it sees the constructor? I told you it is a quite reverse of your constructor. Constructor, it always takes a base first and then goes for the derived class constructor. And destructor, first it goes to the derived class. First this will be printed. That means derived class constructor will be printed and then it goes for the base class's destructor. And when the destructor is going to be called, once the scope is entered, that means this bracket, once this bracket ends, the destructor is going to be called. So let's see the output. Like I said, first base constructor and then derived constructor and then derived destructor and then base destructor. And typo mistake. Base class constructor, derived class constructor, derived class destructor and then base class destructor. Please understand the order. That's the only thing you have to note it down, how to use a destructor in a derived class. Quite opposite of your constructor. So in the next video, let's see about virtual function We have a lot to learn in virtual function. There is pure virtual function and few properties to be learned. And once we complete that, we have one more video to complete, one more topic to complete in the second unit. That will be the end of your second unit. Let me meet you in the next video. Thank you.